But swear by
Yeah,
mistake.
I
I'll
always
try
tell
to.
people, just be careful.
Hmm.
Okay, it does say we are live. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to check Facebook just to make sure that it actually is coming up, because
Yeah.
sometimes you never know if it's actually going to work, because, oh, yep, it's there.
Mhm.
Yay.
Well, luckily
Okay,
it's not a
so,
retrograde. So.
right, I know. Well, and there's so many other things that can also interfere. I'm just going to share this really quickly. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. Those of you that know me know that normally I am in, well, all over, right? So the last about year, I've been on the opposite coast. So I've been on the East Coast and trying to get to this new time change. Oh my goodness. I am just like dragging this morning. Okay, we're good. We're live. Everything's good. I see it in my group. So good morning, everybody. I am actually coming to you from Seattle this time. So Jamie, I don't even know if I told you this, but my husband and I travel. We sold our house a few years ago and he does reclamation. And so we're always all over.
That's
So we've
so
been
fun.
everywhere from like Colorado, Texas, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, North Carolina, South Carolina, and now we're in Georgia. And so we're like
I
always
love
all
it.
over. But I'm visiting my daughter right now in Seattle. So I'm coming to you from Seattle, Washington this morning. So hello, everybody. I am so excited about our guest today. So if you guys don't know Jamie Day, all of her stuff is in the Linktree link below. Go follow her. I gotta say, I love your TikToks and your reels. And I don't go to
Thank you.
TikTok, but I see them on Instagram and they're freaking amazing. I'm like, I wish I could do that. That's just not my thing. But oh my God, yours are so fun.
It's fun. It's just
Yeah, they're
silly
so
fun.
cute. But we need more of that. We need more of that. So, okay, so I was trying to remember even how I kind of met you, and I don't even know, but I know that we're connected on Instagram.
I know I've been following you. I don't remember where I heard about you, but I know that I've followed you since early on in my journey. So it's been a long time.
Really? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. So yeah, so I'm like, I know I've seen her, but I don't remember
Mm-hmm.
even how we got connected or whatever. But so I love that you bring everything in such a simple, easy way. So if you guys aren't following our Instagram, go do that right now because it's amazing. Again, the link is in the link tree. We're going to be talking today, particularly about evidential mediumship, because that was something I saw and I thought, you know what, we really need to talk about the differences in what the spiritual abilities are and the different specialties, because everybody has a spiritual gift. And I know you and I both believe that. Everybody
Oh,
has
yeah.
some kind of spiritual intuition. You can tap into it, but certain people are better at certain things. And the way that I've always equated it is it's like baseball, right? Like everybody can play, but some people are just naturally pitchers. Some people are naturally first base, right? Some people are just awesome in the outfield. So we all have these different things.
I like that analogy. That's good.
Yeah, I love the mediumship piece because that's not my specialty.
Yeah.
I can help you with your guides. I can help you talk to your angels. I can help you look at like your soul path, or if you have like choices coming up. But to talk to the family and friends that have passed over, totally not me. But there's so much about the evidential mediumship that you do. So I want you to just kind of introduce yourself, tell people kind of what your specialties are, what you do.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about evidential mediumship. And I know we didn't like talk about this, but I kind of want to talk about your podcast just a touch too. So
I would love that.
lots of fun stuff, you guys. If you have questions, definitely I will try to watch the comments as we're talking, but I'm going to let Jamie introduce herself right now.
Okay. Hi. So I'm Jamie and I'm on the opposite coast. I'm in Maine. So we're like opposite ends of the country. Yeah, so I would say my specialty is mediumship, meaning that I would consider that kind of my baby, and compared to all the other things I do, and it's sort of how I really got into this as a profession through mediumship. So I've always been someone who dabbled in spirituality. It was kind of in and out for my whole life. Like, as a teenager, I had tarot cards and I used to read for my friends and things like that, and I was always fascinated. I actually grew up in Danvers, Massachusetts, which used to be Old Salem Village. It's where the witch trials were.
Cool. Yeah.
So I've always been fascinated with witchcraft and that history. I've always kind of had my mind on it anyway, right? And I think that a lot of people, if they look back, will notice patterns like that, like it was something that was always kind of a part of their life somewhere or another. Also, mediumship was always something I was completely fascinated with. Now, what little kid is fascinated with mediumship, right? I was obsessed with ghosts, period. loved ghost stories, was not afraid of them, like saw ghosts all the time as a kid. And I was an only child, and I had some kind of, my family life was a little wonky when I was a kid. And so everybody just was like, what an active imagination. Nobody took me seriously at all. And so I didn't take myself seriously. I believed I saw ghosts, but I also was like, whatever. I thought it was legitimately until my 30s that I thought that I used to say they just know that I'm open to it. They just know that I'm not afraid. So they just will show themselves to me. They just know that I'm open to it. So that's lucky me. I got lucky. But even as a kid, like I used to always watch Unsolved Mysteries when I was little, and I was obsessed with James Van Prague. Like at like 7 years old, I knew who James Van Prague was.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Not normal.
Yeah.
Not normal.
Yeah.
And I remember talking about it with my grandparents. My grandparents loved John Edwards. And so I used to watch that with my grandmother. And I can reflect back on all these conversations about mediumship. Now, I found out way later, before I knew I was a medium, but not when I was a kid, that my grandparents, actually, my grandfather's brother was a trance medium. And when my dad and my aunt would go to bed at night, he would come over. And what he would do is their friends would come over, and the way that he connected was much different than the way that I connect. He would channel his spirit guide, who was a Native American man, and the Native American spirit guide would give the readings. So he was in a trance the whole time. That is certainly not how I operate. I am very alert and conscious. And when I give readings, it's like I like it to be like a three-way conversation. The three of us are laughing, having fun. They'll talk to me privately, and I'll say, I'm not saying that, we have like, you better phrase that differently. That's fresh. You be nice. We have our own conversations. I don't go in a trance.
Right.
But so it really wasn't until my mother-in-law died very suddenly that I realized, when I was just so desperate for her and that connection of longing. We were very, very close. I wasn't raised by my mother, and I called her mom. And so when she died unexpectedly, I just was longing for her so bad. And she answered, like, a lot, like all the time. And I was kind of like, what is this happening? What's going on? And this now I know in retrospect was spirit, but I couldn't get the idea out of my mind that, okay, if I can do this, if I can hear my mother-in-law so clearly, what else can I do? And so I started practicing, and I actually kept it secret for like a good year. I didn't even tell anybody. I would be up in the middle of the night, like practicing on people in some random Facebook group. I'm not kidding.
Trying to hide a little bit.
And so when I finally had the courage to tell people in my real life, I started practicing on them, and it kind of evolved from there.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I love the story, right? Because it's something heartfelt that called you to this.
Yeah.
And as far as the trance thing, like I think back in the day, because whether we know it or not on the planet, like we've all ascended, right? Which just means raising the vibration. So because we've raised our vibration, I know there are still some people who do trance mediumship, but I don't even think it's necessary anymore.
No, it's not.
Because I really feel like you can just talk to them. And that's how I explain it whenever I'm connecting with spirit too. It's like, we're all sitting at the kitchen table, just having a conversation. Like it's not this big, thing. And same thing. I've seen spirit since I was little, and I didn't ever know that it was necessarily wrong, but same thing when I was young. I was like, oh, she's so cute. She thinks she's talking to Jesus and the angels, And I'm like, no, they're right there. Like, don't you see them? Like, why don't you see them? And the same thing, I had little random things pop in. My grandpa and my aunt, so it was actually my grandpa and then my grandma's sister. They were the two that helped me, because my guides are kind of on the esoteric and like not people. You know what I mean? Like I talk a lot with like angels, and there's some celestial beings that come in, and I was like, this is so weird to me. Like, I'm not sure what to do. And so my grandpa and my aunt came together, and they're like, girl, you got to get this figured out. So we're going to help you. And I'm like, well, how do I talk to them? And they're like, the same way you're talking to us. And it was so funny. And I don't know why I'm telling this story, but my aunt actually lived up in this area. So I'm wondering if that's why.
Yeah, maybe.
She was like, It was so funny. There was one morning when because same thing, like my family knew, like my husband, my kids, my mom, my brothers, but that was pretty like, and my dad, we kind of kept it close. It was something, just talk about it at the kitchen table where it's safe in your own home and you don't
Yeah.
go tell everybody about it.
Mhm.
But I'll never forget that whenever I was, practicing the meditation and when it became obvious that I couldn't shut it down anymore,
Mhm.
and that I was being called to use this gift as something more and something different,
Mhm.
um, I was like, okay, I'm going to just meditate. I'm going to trust. I'm going to pray. Um, and so then they came to me and there was this one day where my aunt went, by golly, Toonsy, she's got it. And I was
Oh,
like,
cute.
and I was like, wait, so I had to call my mom and I'm like, Mom, did Aunt Elma call Grandpa Toonsy? Because his nickname was Toons, but I had never heard Toonsy. And she goes,
That's
oh my
cute.
God, she called him that all the time. And I was like, I would have never known that because I didn't know that she ever called him that nickname, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
that's really cute.
it was such good confirmation too from my mom because I had never heard that specific
Mhm.
nickname. And I was like, okay, I'm getting this clear. Like it's very clear now.
And what you're saying is actually a perfect example of the question at hand. That's evidence. That
Got
right
it.
there is evidence. So mediumship in general, right? When I say what is mediumship, when I go through what mediumship is with people, because some people don't even know, right? When I'm referring to mediumship, now some people might say other things, but in my opinion, in the way that I teach it, when I refer to mediumship, it is, I'm just trying to move my hair off my microphone so it's not making noise. I'm talking about connecting with your past loved ones, the people from your life who have died that are on the other side. That's what I mean by mediumship. So when we talk about what is evidential mediumship, that is me connecting with those people. I communicate with them using my clairs, my psychic senses, and we speak through the language of energy. And so I have to basically translate what they're showing me, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling emotionally and physically, sometimes even what I'm smelling or tasting. And I have to kind of translate it and relay it to the person in such a way that they understand. And the evidential portion of that is where the past person, the spirit communicator, the dead one on the other side,
Yeah, yeah.
is giving me examples of stuff that makes sense to you that will verify, validate, confirm, yes, I'm here. Yes, I've always been here. Yes, this is me that you're talking to.
Very cool. So I agree on that. I think it's a valid, like, an interesting point that I want to highlight there, where we all have different. I apologize, you guys. I just don't realize I have this big blob. My eyes are watering. There's something here evidently that I'm allergic to. But okay, totally off topic. I think people get confused on like the terms, like what is mediumship? What is this? What is that?
Mhm.
Because there's so many different things, like get a psychic reading, get a psychic tarot reading, get a mediumship tarot reading. And I'm like, there's all these different words. I agree with you. When I think of mediumship, I immediately think I talk to dead people. Like
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell. It's like if you want to
Yeah.
talk to your loved ones that have passed over, and again, I think it's really important. I have one of my best friends is a medium as well, and she's awesome. But I'm like, we need more people like you because I can't say, okay, I'm gonna talk to your Uncle Lou from 1920 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm-hmm.
just don't tune in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when you have a reading, how does it usually come through for you? Like, do you usually kind of have an idea of who's going to come through for that person, or can they specifically ask?
I'm so glad you asked that actually, because I every medium will tell you something different. You know what I mean? Not every medium
Mm.
really works the same way. And that is one of the very first things that I speak about as soon as we start a reading. So if you were to book a reading with me, which you can do, I have a link where you can just book yourself right into my calendar. It makes it nice and easy. So you can book a reading with me. And then on the day of the reading, if you pick a phone reading, which are a little bit on the shorter side, I'll actually ask you right away to give me your top priority. What is it you want the most? Because these readings go by really, really fast. And the reason I do that, there's kind of a funny story that it illustrates as an example. I had a phone reading with this one woman one time, and I say, okay, what's your top priority? Because I want to just make sure we get to what you booked for. And then we'll save time for whatever else happens. Because when you do mediumship readings, sometimes sometimes other spirits like to be kind of door openers or gatekeepers, or like to pop in just to say hi. And I said, we don't want to waste any time on your boyfriend from when you were 16 if what you really want to talk to is someone else. I said, so what's your top priority? And she said, my dad, or whatever it was. And I started the reading and I said, nope. Has your husband passed? And she was like, no. And she got all paranoid. I'm like, no, nothing's going to happen. I said, I'm getting this sensation. It's someone who said you were how much he loved you. And you were you were in love. And she goes, oh yeah, my boyfriend when I was 16. Isn't that funny? And that happens all the time.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
That
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
I've multiple readings, probably multiple people could verify that I've said, why don't you just tell me first name and relationship so I can call to them? Like my dad, Joe, and the girl go, my dad, Joe. It's so funny.
Yeah.
But so I say that you're allowed, if you want, why don't you just tell me first name and relationship and I will call to them. Now, some mediums will say, absolutely not. That's like a lot of real traditional spiritualist mediums will not do that. Now, the reason I say it's okay, I'm not summoning them. We're not pulling them.
You're not conjuring anything.
Yes. Yeah. They can say no.
Right.
They almost never do, because whoever you want to talk to wants to support you in that. They almost always will come through. In my longer readings, usually I say, why don't I start with whatever is coming through on its own? And then if I haven't gotten in touch with the person you were most hoping to hear from, after a little while, we'll try and call them. Almost always the person they want to hear from will come down first.
And that's so true, because I feel like even in the readings I do, which are not mediumship, right? So it wouldn't be talking to a loved one I say that, but sometimes they will pop in when it's very important. They will pop in and I can get clarity, but that's never the intention of a reading that I would have. But whatever the person needs, always, whatever's in their highest and best always comes through, because Spirit is so loving, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like God loves us so much that he gives us all this support that we don't even know we have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all right there.
Well, and sometimes it's not what we want to hear. So sometimes it's hard for us to realize that still counts as support,
Right.
But one of the things people say they like about me is the way that I put it. I tend to put things in a very loving, warm and fuzzy way, even when I'm delivering the hard news, I teach my students, when I teach my mediumship development course, I teach them, we refer to it as bedside manner.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful.
Mediumship is tricky. These are wounds.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I'm like, you're a healer, whether anyone would say that or not. You are a healer. You are. We're nurturing people when we do these readings, because it is getting to the essence of whatever their hurts, their wounds, their traumas, whatever you want to call it, right? Because that's why people, they either need closure, they need to understand something. There's always some searching element, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, people don't book readings for fun. I mean, occasionally, right? But they almost always need something, even if it's hard for them to admit to themselves. And I've had people, I don't think this is going to sound like humble brag, but I've had people that have told me that it's changed their life, their readings.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just because of the content of what I said, but even the idea of it. Now look at this whole new world that's opened up to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing. And I think it needs to be talked about on so many different levels, because I know you teach on empath abilities too. And one of the things that I really try to stress and help, especially my clients, but I'll even in my community groups, like the free stuff I talk about, there's a very distinct difference between being empathic and having empathy for somebody, because all of us can have empathy. We all know what that is. It's different than sympathy, again, right? There's a little bit of a difference. And my guides have been really talking about being very clear about the subtle differences in the words, because the vibrations, even though it's a subtle version of the word, the vibrational difference is vast, right? So when you're talking about being empathic, versus empathy. Like we can all have empathy, but one of the things that drives me nuts, and I think I saw you post about something like this the other day. And like, I remember a couple years ago going, don't let any, like, don't be a victim of anything. Like, don't be a victim of being an empath. Don't be a victim of Mercury retrograde. Like, just know what it is. And to me, it's like, the more you know about it, it's like being prepared for life. Like if you know that it's going to rain, pack a raincoat. If you
Exactly.
know that you get sick, if you get too cold, wear a damn coat. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like all of these different things. And it's not about judging that something's right or wrong, but like be prepared for it. So if you, and a lot of people maybe don't know what empath versus empathy is right now, but I feel like the empathic abilities of people are just skyrocketing right now. Good morning, everybody. I'm seeing a lot of people saying hello. I love Maine. Good
Hi.
morning.
Hello.
Great conversation. So I just wanted to really quickly acknowledge hello, everybody that's watching.
Hi. I can't see it. So if
Yeah,
anyone is
I
saying
think
anything
only
to
I can
me,
see
then
it on my
sorry.
side. It's okay. Whenever we're done, if there's anything for you, I'll make sure to tag you. But so far, it's
Cool.
just,
Okay.
good conversation. Hello, good
Thanks.
morning. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us today. And again, as always, you guys, if it's a replay and you still have a question, if you're catching the replay, just do #replay and then either tag me or Jamie in it, and we'll definitely get back to your questions, because what we're talking about today is so important. So again, going back to the empath thing, like you literally feel things, and when you're in the beginning of it, it feels like you can't, like, you're like, I feel everything and I don't know what to do and I can't control it. And it can be easy to feel like a victim, but I think it's really important, because as we're ascending in the collective, right, as humanity is waking up to higher and higher understanding and more subtle differences in vibration and reality and manifesting and all of these things, the people that maybe have always been empathic, it's feeling more strong or intense or whatever. And you literally, when you're feeling what somebody else is feeling, like physically, mentally, emotionally, and you're feeling it so intensely, but you're like, I don't think this is mine. Like, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah, it's hard.
Right? It's really hard. One of the best examples I have of this was years ago, and we were in this it was actually in my yoga teacher training, and we were in like this meditation space, and we were all just kind of like just chilling and relaxing and trying to tune in. And I'm like, this is totally TMI, but somebody has cramps and you need to go get some ibuprofen right now because it's killing me. Like I can feel it. And they were like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hold it anymore. Like I literally I could feel that somebody there was in so much pain. And I was like, we've got, like, I don't know if it was a back cramp or, whatever kind of cramps it was, but I'm like, I'm feeling the cramp. It's right here. And that to me is like what being an empath is. You literally feel what someone else is feeling. And right now it's a collective, right? Because we're feeling all of the overwhelm and all of the stress
Burnout.
and all of the burnout and all of the fear and
Heavy.
all of it. And so when you're an empath, and I know you mentioned that you have like a workshop or class or something. So I want to talk about that because I feel like it's really important.
Yes, Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. So I don't know what time that is for you. No, 6:30. I don't know.
So,
It's on my 7,
if
maybe.
it's
I don't know.
so if it's
I
6,
forget what time it is.
I know I've kind of got the time zones out. The only thing, so if it's 6 Eastern, it would
I don't even
be
know if it's 6 Eastern. It's either 6. I think it's actually at either.
evening.
I think it's actually at either 6:30 or 7. But whatever time it is, whatever time I said it is, it's in my link
around
tree.
that.
It's on my website. But anyway, I have ADHD and I'm a Pisces, and I exist in my upper chakras.
In your other
So
world,
I'm
yeah.
not great at the real life part of work of my business, the business portion of my
It's so
business.
easy.
What
What's
time
so
is my
funny?
class? I don't
Right.
know.
What time is the class? Where am I at right now? My
Yeah.
husband, he's so funny. We'll be having a conversation and he'll be like, wait, what realm are you in right now? Like, are you grounded? Can we have this conversation? Or are you, I'm like, I just got off of a client call. Let me come back.
Yeah. I always, that's so funny that you say
conversation.
that. I'm like drifting really bad, but whenever I finish a reading here at my desk, I always go out to the bathroom to wash my hands, and like just wash the energy off. But my vibe is always so high after a reading that I inevitably, if my husband's out there like watching a movie or something, I always end up stopping and just like, and he's always like, every time. So funny. My empath class. That's what I was talking about.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
So, Yeah, so that's going to be Thursday evening at some point, and it's about, I call it the Empath Secrets to Success.
Yeah.
Now, success, I think, is a human term, right? There's not really
Right.
such a thing as
Totally.
success and
Totally.
failure. But, for making you feel successful, because I think there are so many myths surrounding what it means to be an empath. And people talk about it in terms of like, oh, I get so drained in crowds, and oh, that person's an energy vampire, but there's so much more to it. There's so much more to it. That's like,
Yeah.
in fact, that's probably the least of your problems as an
Oh,
empath.
absolutely. Right. Yeah,
And
absolutely. But
there's
it's
so
also a
many
good
easy
sign.
tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good sign, but sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. That's okay. There's so many easy tools, and there's so many benefits to being an empath too. And so
Mhm.
the workshop is to really just help people become empowered empaths who are aware of their gifts and able to use them
Mhm.
to their benefit, as opposed to feeling weighed down by it. Now, it's not going to take away the problems of the world.
Right.
Everything is still extremely heavy, and you're probably going to still feel that heaviness. I feel that heaviness, and I think I'm a pretty empowered empath.
Mhm.
But it's about, you know, learning how to separate, learning how to protect yourself, and then focusing on the good parts of it. There are so many, like, empaths can influence other people, and empaths have things that they're better at that other people just don't, that aren't as good at, because they don't have that gift. So,
Right, right. No, I love that. And I think that it is so important. So like the one of the most important things I think a lot of times for empaths is to even know, like, is this mine? Because sometimes it can feel so
mhm,
intense that you're like, you think that there's something wrong with you, maybe, right? And so you're going to the doctor, and then the doctors can't
mhm.
find anything, and they don't know what it is, and it's like, well, it may not even be yours. So that's one of the things. Somebody said, Lisa's saying that the best courses ever. So you have the best courses ever,
Oh,
and she's telling us it's February 10th at 6:30 Eastern.
thank you, Lisa.
Thank you,
Lisa's
Lisa, for doing that.
Lisa's like my VIP, my VVVIP student. She keeps me. Lisa's my anchor. Lisa's my
Yeah,
lifeline. I love her.
that's
Thank you,
awesome.
Lisa.
So, and it's what realm are you in? So funny. I love that. So, anyway, but yeah, so there's so much to this idea of being an empath. Like, and I know I've taught on this too, but I really am urging you guys, if you're seeing this and you feel like you're an empath, check it out. Just go to the link, check it out, see if it's
Yeah.
for you.
Honestly,
Because I feel like it's super important.
even if you don't think you're an empath, but like things are really heavy right now, maybe check it out and then like try some of the techniques.
Exactly.
See how you
Right.
feel. You know,
Hmm.
I think
Hmm.
they're all, the class is about and for empaths, but I think anyone can
I think
benefit.
every person, well, and again, okay, so coming back to the human collective, right? Whether we know it or not, as a species of human beings on this planet, we are rising in the vibration together, even though
Yay.
some people don't really look like they are, right? Like some people, it does not look like they're going to leave 3D, but on a grander scale, on a whole, if you're watching this, I can guarantee you that if
Yeah.
you're being called to see things like this, like
Yeah.
you are on that path. And again, I don't, these words that get put out there, that don't make them bigger than they are, right? Like ascension
Right.
literally just means raising to a higher level. So like you're raising your vibration, you're becoming more in tune with your senses. It's kind of like the idea of having that sixth sense, right? Instead of just our normal sight, smell, touch, taste, like we're adding more sensations that we feel and that we understand. And then on top of that, like coming from the galactic perspective, like the way that our Earth is moving, our galaxy is moving through the greater universe, like there's even like photon energy neutrinos that are coming to the planet that our bodies are feeling. And I always make this it's like back in the day when like your grandparents would be like, oh, my knee's aching, the barometer must be dropping or rising or whatever.
Yeah. It's going to
Like it's kind
rain.
of like our whole body is feeling that on a more galactic level now. So there's so much to what seems so simple. And it's not that simple. There's so much to it. The more we can learn to understand ourselves, I think,
Yes.
right? And I
Yes.
and I feel like the idea of learning what it is to be an empath, learning how to deal with some of the things that come up when you are an empath is super important. This year, my guides had said that this was the year of the sacred self, basically. So it's learning to love
Like
yourself,
that.
learning to honor yourself, learning what self-love really means, learning
like that.
what self-care is, right? And if you're an empath, you really need to know how to use these skills,
Yes.
right?
And let me even take it one step further. If you are someone who wants to work in the spiritual field, the spiritual community, if you want to be a medium, etc., you have to work on this. You have to. I tell my students in my mediumship development course that not all empaths are mediums. All mediums are empaths. Period, across the board. Because being a medium, in part, okay, let me just, in part, being a medium, it exists in the same wheelhouse. You know, you feel the things that other people are feeling that are in the room around you. Well, guess what? I do too. It's also the dead people.
Right?
I feel the dead people around me. It's funny how you were talking about the cramps. When I do a mediumship reading, that's almost always, now this doesn't work this way for everybody, right? The way that you experience both your empath gifts, your mediumship gifts, your psychic gifts are going to depend on what your strongest clairs are and like where your gifts work they're the best. Which is different for everybody. But for me, I physically feel things first. And so I hated it when I was first working on my mediumship because I would sit down and I would mean to deliver the message. And the first flipping thing I would feel would be how the person died. And sometimes it could be almost debilitating.
Traumatic.
Just because I would feel it so strongly. And thankfully, you know, I've learned to sort of, I can feel it in an awareness way rather than a distracting way.
You can learn how to not actually take it into your own self and your own body and still be able to get the understanding of it.
But we were sick a few weeks ago with some kind of respiratory thing. I don't know what it was, but could have been, could have not been, but I was really sick and I felt like garbage. And sometimes I can push through when I don't feel well. You know, we can push through when we don't feel well to do the email parts of our work or whatever. Fine. Reading is a little bit more challenging because in order for me to make connections, I have to raise my vibration to a level where I'm able to hear spirit. I have to get high enough. But I had a couple of energy scans to do. I was offering like a special with energy scans and I was like, it's fine. I can work through it. I can work through it. I sat down. I'm like, you feel like I'm dying, you know, like I just couldn't, I'm like, what's yours? What's mine? Like, I can't even, you know, I needed to allow my body to heal, to feel better because that's a really strong one for me when I first connect with somebody, the physical sensations.
You know, and that's part of self-care and self-responsibility, you know, because we've been taught like, suck it up, work through it. You're fine, push through.
Right.
And that is not going to work anymore. Like in 5D, it's not, you just can't, you have to learn how to take care of yourself and how to really honor what's showing up. And again, like we're like, oh God, we don't want to cancel on somebody. You know what I mean? But it's always better if you feel that way. Just reschedule. It'll always work out fine.
And I said, like, you don't want me to do a reading right now anyway, because it's less likely it'll be accurate. You know, you paid for this. You want to wait until I feel good and it'll be legit.
Right. Yeah.
So,
well, and I don't think that, I mean, I think that's actually a good lesson, right? To just be able to reschedule and be in honor and authenticity. You just posted something about that too, about being in integrity. And I'm like, that's a perfect example of that.
Yeah, that's important to me. That's what integrity and ethics are probably like.
Me too.
Yeah. My mediumship development course, I won't even allow them to practice on anybody, including me, until they've watched my lesson on ethics in mediumship.
You know, I'm so glad that you're talking about that, because that's one of the first things I teach too. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? Like I don't, the shows, and I haven't talked about this in a long time, but like the shows on TV, like those people are not just walking up to them. There's a whole dialogue behind the scenes that probably does not come. Like if they're in like
the speech you're giving right now is in my course. The speech you are giving right now is in my course. She does not walk into the grocery store and she's so overwhelmed and bothered by ghosts, she can't help herself. What she's doing is a group reading where these people have signed up and acknowledged that she is about to be in my grocery store trying to read for us. They all already know that she's there. Okay. Do not do that. Please do not do that.
Right.
It's unethical. Let's talk about why it's unethical. Let's talk about why it's
Yeah.
unethical, because I want to make sure people hear it. When you are talking about someone's dead loved one, their dead relative, you could rip that scab off and now they're bleeding again. This is a serious wound. You
Right.
can't just approach somebody when they're not in the right frame of mind. I have
Right.
friends who have lost people who believe wholeheartedly in what I do, or have had tarot readings from me, or have seen me work, who do not
They're
want
not ready.
readings because they're not ready. And it is not appropriate for me. It is not my job to make that decision for you.
Yes, because boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Because of healthy boundaries. And one of the other things too that I especially with like a lot of the people that I work with, they're more on the like spiritual coaching or healing or whatever. But even if it's healing, like even if it's trying to clear cords, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
you should, in my opinion, being ethical, being in integrity, you don't ever clear a cord if it's not ready. Like I've actually had readings sometimes where I'm doing energy work and I'm like, okay, let's remove this cord. Does that feel right? But there's been times where I can see a cord that definitely needs to be removed. But if I start to try to work on it and I feel resistance, I immediately
Mm-hmm.
stop. I'm not going to force it. So we talk it through. We say, I'm seeing that you're corded with this. This is what I'm feeling. This is what it's about. And I'm not going to rip it out of somebody if they're not ready. Because for one, that can cause all kinds of flailing
Yeah.
around energy in the universe that nobody needs. And two, if it's not the right time, it's not for me to decide what's right for somebody, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it doesn't matter which kind of psychic, medium, healing, energy work, Reiki, tarot reading, whatever it is, like you don't just force anything on somebody just because you know you can do it. Like, and I've seen that happen before. I've actually had to heal stuff that was removed that really didn't need to be yet. So there's so much, when you do this work for so long, you see everything, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So trusting that, okay, I'm trying to think. There was a couple things I wanted to cover. Lisa actually just said again, the animal communications. I saw that as well, that you were going to start doing that. So
Yeah.
we want to make sure that people understand that you do give readings from those that have passed over.
Yeah.
So if they need to do that, definitely book with you. You're doing the empath class on Thursday and the animal communication. So tell us a little bit about that. I know we're talking forever. I think I told you half an hour.
That's okay.
And we're a little bit past that, but
That's okay.
I knew this was going to be such a great conversation when we
So
decided
yeah,
to do it.
I actually, Lisa's so funny. My animal communication readings are on sale this month. That's like my special
perfect.
reading of the month, because I don't
Yay.
normally offer those. I just like pop that in. It can be past animals or current living animals, and I'm offering it because it happens anyway. So
Right.
might as well
Right.
make it a
So you might
thing.
as well just have it in there. Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I love that so much. So everybody that is here, thank you so much for your comments, for your questions. Again, if you're
Can I
watching
say
this
one
on
more thing
replay,
before we hang
yeah,
up?
please. Yeah.
Well, I know you had mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about my podcast, and when we were talking
Yes.
about
That's right. I
when
knew
we
there
were,
was something I was forgetting.
if I'm like killing you, going way over.
No, I'm
But
so glad you remembered because I spaced it.
I don't say it to like share about my podcast, but we were talking about ethics, and I think it's something that's important to consider. Okay, so you guys might be surprised, kind of my opinion on this. It surprises a lot of people. People don't expect me to say this. So my podcast, it's called Lost Souls of America, and it is actually a true crime podcast. It's about unsolved cases. And I do not do mediumship in any way on that podcast. And that's because I think that public psychics and mediums in true crime is unethical. People are very surprised to hear me say that. I have worked with people in private. I do offer private investigative readings, but even those can be kind of tricky. The reason I don't think it's appropriate, there's a million reasons. Number one, I will not read for anybody without their consent. When somebody, even you sign into the reading that day, we log into the Zoom, I reaffirm consent that day. Like, is this what you want? Is this what you wanted? Should we talk about another subject? So I'm not about to connect with someone without their permission, maybe for my own personal, like, because I want to get a line on it. I'm curious, but like I would never deliver that information publicly. Also, when we're talking about true crime, there's a lot of pieces of evidence that the police hold close to the vest, right? And if I'm out there publicly saying stuff that the police aren't, what happens if I'm right and I ruin the investigation?
Right.
What happens if I'm wrong and somebody listens to me and they go down a rabbit hole and waste their time? I don't want to be responsible for that either. And I just don't think it's, there's a million reasons why. I just don't think it's appropriate for public consumption. Do I have opinions on what happened to most of these people? Yeah, of course I do. But my opinion doesn't matter. And so the whole point of my podcast is not about me as the medium. The reason that I started the podcast in the first place is because this is a separate side passion of mine. And that's actually kind of how it got started. I've taken a forensic mediumship class with Lisa Williams. I've done some other stuff. I was really into, investigations for a while. That's actually why I got into it in the first place. But it's if I'm going to sit here and consume this true crime and watch all these shows, the least I can do is attempt to help people. Right. So it's all unsolved cases. And we try to focus a lot, not every episode, but we try to focus a lot on, more underserved people whose maybe stories aren't being shared quite as much. This week's episode, they air every Wednesday at 4. Lost Souls of America. They come on every Wednesday at 4. This week's episode, we do talk about a current open investigation at the beginning of it. But this one is actually a Valentine's special. So it's kind of just it's not really a normal episode. And I tell 3 really sick and twisted stories of love gone wrong. They're not.
I can't even imagine. So I saw that and I'm like, I just am not, I can't do any of that. Like, I don't like the true crime story. I just can't do it.
I love it.
It's never, I know. And I have a couple of friends that do too. And I'm just like, I don't know. I have another friend that actually, it's amazing too, how many forensic mediums are actually used. You know what I mean? Like, it's a thing. But again, she doesn't really talk about it that much publicly either. So I love that. And again, it comes down to healthy boundaries, right? Because it's about honoring everybody where they're at and being good with that. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely, again, that's in her link tree, a link that is underneath this podcast or underneath this video. You should find all of the information for her there. Has the information for her class, for her readings, all of those kind of things are there.
Yay.
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me
with me today. I do want to shout out really quick. For me, February, I'm doing a self-love symposium. It's a 28-day self-led course. You can join at any time and catch it up, but it's super fun. Self-care.
What a good idea.
Yeah. Self-responsibility. Lots of fun and really learning how to truly love and honor yourself as a sacred being that you are while you're being human. Right. So beautiful thing. But thank you so much for talking to us today about all the different aspects of mediumship and what you do and just having an open conversation, because I do feel like this is super important as we move forward in 2022 for sure. It's going to be an interesting year.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Hopefully, hopefully lots of healing will take place for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Healing is going to be definitely important this year. So sending love to everybody. Jamie, thank you again so much for being my guest today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you so much. Again, follow her on all the places. Get on her social media. We'll see you guys all later. Thank you so much.
Talk soon. Thank you. Bye.